Hi, and welcome to another episode of True Crime Tales. Today we're going to be talking about JonBenet Ramsey. Y'all know the story. It's very graphic. As always, there is a content warning. If you have a weak stomach or can't handle talks of crime and whatnot, then you should probably just keep scrolling. JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was an American child beauty queen who was killed at the age of 6 in her family's home at 755 15th Street in Boulder, Colorado. A long, handwritten ransom note was found in the home. Her father, John, found the girl's body in the basement of their house about 7 hours after she had been reported missing. She had sustained a broken skull 2.5 hours before her death due to asphyxiation. A garrote was found tied around her neck. The autopsy report stated that JonBenet's official cause of death was asphyxia by homicide. The case generated worldwide public and media interest, in part because her mother, Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen, had entered JonBenet into a series of child beauty pageants. The crime is still considered a cold case and remains an open investigation with the Boulder Police Department. The Boulder Police initially suspected that the ransom note had been written by Patsy, and that the note and appearance of JonBenet's body had been staged by her parents in order to cover up the murder. In 1999, the police and district attorney both said that JonBenet's brother Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of her death, was not a suspect. JonBenet's parents gave several televised interviews but resisted police questioning except on their own terms. In October 2013, unsealed court documents revealed that a 1999 grand jury had recommended filing charges against the Ramseys for permitting the child to be in a threatening situation. John and Patsy were also accused of hindering the prosecution of an unidentified person who had committed the crime of murder in the first degree and child abuse resulting in death. However, the DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to pursue a successful indictment. In 2002, the DA's successor took over investigation of the case from the police and primarily pursued the theory that an intruder had committed the killing. In 2003, trace DNA that was taken from the victim's clothes were found to belong to an unknown male. Each of the family's DNA had been excluded from this match. The DA sent the Ramseys a letter of apology in 2008, declaring the family was completely cleared by the DNA results. Others, including former Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner, disagreed with exonerating the Ramseys, characterizing the DNA as a small piece of evidence that was not proven to have any connection to the crime. In February 2009, the Boulder Police took the case back from the DA and reopened the investigation. National and international media coverage of the case focused on JonBenet's brief beauty pageant career, as well as her parents' wealth and the unusual evidence found in the case. Media reports questioned how the police handled the investigation. Ramsey family members and their friends have filed defamation suits against several media organizations. JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia, the younger of two children of Patricia Patsy Ramsey and JonBenet Ramsey. She had an older brother named Burke. JonBenet's first name combines her father's first and middle names, and her mother's first name was used as her middle name. She was enrolled in kindergarten at High Peaks Elementary School in Boulder, Colorado. JonBenet's body was found on December 26, 1996, in her family's Boulder residence. She was buried at St. James Episcopal Cemetery in Marietta, Georgia, on December 31st. JonBenet was interred next to her half-sister, Elizabeth Pash Ramsey, who had died in a car crash nearly 5 years earlier at the age of 22. John Ramsey was a businessman who was the president of Access Graphics, a computer software company that later became a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. His first marriage ended in divorce in 1978, and in 1991, John had moved with Patsy, his second wife, and family to Boulder, where Access Graphics headquarters was located. Patsy Ramsey entered JonBenet in various child beauty pageants in Boulder, where she won the titles of America's Royale Miss, Little Miss Charlevoix, Little Miss Colorado, Colorado State All-Star Kids Cover Girl, and National Tiny Miss Beauty. JonBenet's active role in beauty pageants and Patsy's reported pageant mother behavior were reported by the media after the murder. In the summer of 1997, approximately 6 months after JonBenet's death, the Ramseys moved to a new home in Atlanta after a summer at their vacation retreat in Charlevoix, Michigan. Patsy died of ovarian cancer at the age of 49 in 2006. She was interred next to her daughter. According to statements that Patsy gave to authorities on December 26, 1996, she realized that her daughter was missing after she found a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note on the kitchen staircase at the Ramsey family's Boulder residence. The note demanded $118,000 US. John pointed out to police first on the scene that the amount was nearly identical to his Christmas bonus of the prior year, which suggested that someone would have access to that information would be involved in the crime. Investigators looked at several theories behind the dollar amount demanded concerning employees at Access Graphics who may have known of the amount of John's prior bonus. They also considered the possibility that the ransom demand was a reference to Psalm 118 and spoke to religious sources to determine possible relevance. The ransom note appears to echo film dialogue. The films Ruthless People, Ransom, Escape from New York, Speed, and Dirty Harry have acceptance as sources. The ransom note was unusually long, and the FBI told the police that it was very unusual for such a note to be written at the crime scene. The police believed that the note was staged because it did not have any fingerprints except for Patsy's and authorities who had handled it, and because it included an unusual use of exclamation marks and initialisms. The note and a practice draft were written with a pen and notepad from the Ramsey home. According to a Colorado Bureau of Investigation report, there are indications that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsey. However, the evidence fell short of a definitive conclusion, and Michael Baden, a board-certified forensic pathologist who had consulted with both sides of the case, said he had never seen a note like it in his 60-year experience and that he did not think it was written by an outside stranger. A federal court ruled it highly unlikely that Patsy wrote the note, citing 6 certified handwriting experts. The court bemoaned the existence of self-proclaimed experts without credentials trying to censure the case by accusing Patsy without scientific basis. The note read, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We do respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your bank account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence a earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The 2 gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory. SBTC. The only people known to be in the house on the night of JonBenet's death were her immediate family, Patsy and John Ramsey, and their son, Burke. The ransom note contained specific instructions against contacting police and friends, but Patsy telephoned the police at 5:52 a.m. She also called family and friends. 2 police officers responded to the 911 call and arrived at the Ramsey home within 3 minutes. They conducted a cursory search of the house, but did not find any sign of a forced entry. Officer Rick French went to the basement and came to a door that was secured by an additional wooden latch at the top of the door frame. He paused for a moment in front of the door, but walked away without opening it. French later explained that he was looking for an exit route used by the kidnapper. Since the wooden latch was holding the door closed from inside the house, the kidnapper could not have used this door and then closed the latch from the inside, ruling this out as a possible exit. JonBenet's body was later found behind the door. With JonBenet still missing, John made arrangements to pay the ransom. A forensics team was dispatched to the house. The team initially believed that the child had been kidnapped, and JonBenet's bedroom was the only room in the house that was cordoned off to prevent contamination of evidence. No precautions were taken to prevent contamination of evidence in the rest of the house. Meanwhile, friends, victim advocates, and the Ramsey family's minister arrived at the home to show support. Visitors picked up and cleaned surfaces in the kitchen, possibly destroying evidence. Boulder detective Linda Arndt arrived at about 8 a.m. in anticipation of receiving further instructions by the kidnappers, but there was never any attempt by anyone to claim the money. At 1 p.m., Detective Arndt asked John Ramsey and Fleet White, a family friend, to search the house to see if anything seemed amiss. They started their search in the basement. John opened the latch door, which Officer French had overlooked, and found his daughter's body in one of the rooms. JonBenet's mouth was covered with duct tape, a nylon cord was found around her wrists and neck, and her torso was covered by a white blanket. John picked up the child's body and took it upstairs. When JonBenet was moved, the crime scene was further contaminated, and critical forensic evidence was disturbed for the returning forensics team. Each of the Ramseys provided handwriting, blood, and hair samples to the police. John and Patsy participated in a preliminary interview for more than 2 hours, and Burke was also interviewed within the first couple of weeks following JonBenet's death. The autopsy revealed that JonBenet had been killed by strangulation and a skull fracture. The official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. There was no evidence of a conventional rape, although sexual assault cannot be ruled out. Although no semen was found, there was evidence that there had been a vaginal injury. Evidence also suggested that the paintbrush used in the garrote was also used for sexual assault. At the time of the autopsy, the pathologist recorded that it appeared her vaginal area had been wiped with a cloth. Her death was ruled a homicide. A garrote that was made from a length of nylon cord and the broken handle of a paintbrush was tied around JonBenet's neck and had apparently been used to strangle her. Part of the bristle end of the paintbrush was found in a tub containing Patsy's art supplies, but the bottom third of it was never found, despite extensive searching of the house by the police in subsequent days. The autopsy revealed a vegetable or fruit material which may represent pineapple, which JonBenet had eaten a few hours before her death. Photographs of the home taken on the day when JonBenet's body was found show a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table with a spoon in it. However, neither John nor Patsy said they remembered putting the bowl on the table or feeding pineapple to JonBenet. Police reported that they found JonBenet's 9-year-old brother Burke Ramsey's fingerprints on the bowl. The Ramseys have always said that Burke slept through the entire night until he was awakened several hours after the police arrived. In December 2003, forensic investigators extracted enough material from a mixed blood sample found on JonBenet's underwear to establish a DNA profile. That DNA belonged to an unknown male and excluded the DNA of each of the Ramseys. The DNA was submitted to the FBI's CODIS system, a database containing more than 1.6 million DNA profiles, but the sample did not match any in the database. In October 2016, a report said that the new forensic analysis with more sensitive techniques revealed that the original contained genetic markers from 2 individuals other than JonBenet. A. James Kohler, who was the lead investigator to the DA's office, said that there were additional traces of male DNA found on the cord and paintbrush the Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey did not mention, and that there were 6 separate DNA samples belonging to unknown individuals that were found by the test. Former FBI profiler Candace DeLong believes that the DNA, having shown up identically in several different places on multiple surfaces, belongs to the killer. Former Adams County, Colorado District Attorney Bob Grant, who has assisted the Boulder DA's office on the case for many years, also believes that the DNA evidence is significant, saying that any resolution of the case would have to explain how the DNA showed up on several pieces of her clothing. Forensic pathologist Michael Baden said, trace amounts of DNA can get on places and clothing from all different non-suspicious means. There is no forensic evidence to show that this is a stranger murder. On February 2nd, 2009, Boulder Police Chief Mark Becker announced that Stan Garrett, the new Boulder County District Attorney, was turning the case over to his agency and that his team would resume investigating it. Garrett found that the statute of limitations for the crimes identified in the 1999 grand jury true bill had expired and did not pursue a review of the case against the Ramseys. In October 2010, the Boulder Police reopened the cold case. New interviews were conducted conducted following a fresh inquiry by a committee that included state and federal investigators. It was reported in September 2016 that the investigation into JonBenet's death continues to be an active homicide case, per Boulder Police Chief Greg Testa. In 2015, Beckner disagreed with exonerating the Ramseys, stating he also stated that the unknown DNA from JonBenet's clothing has got to be the focus of the investigation at this point in time, and that until one can prove otherwise, the suspect is the donator of that unknown DNA. There are two primary theories about the death of JonBenet. One is the family member theory. Boulder police initially concentrated almost exclusively upon the parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, according to Greg McCrary, a retired profiler with the FBI. Statistically, it is a 12-to-1 probability that it's a family member or a caregiver who is involved in the homicide of a child. The police saw no evidence of forced entry, but they did see evidence of staging of the scene, such as the ransom note. They did not find the Ramseys cooperative in helping them solve the death of their daughter. The Ramseys had said that their reluctance was due to their fear that there would not be a full investigation for intruders and that they would be hastily selected as the key suspects in the case, according to the Daily Camera. John Edward Douglas is an American retired special agent and unit chief in the United States FBI. John Douglas was one of the first criminal profilers and has written and co-written books on criminal psychology, true crime novels, and his biography. Regarding the case of JonBenet, Douglas contends that John and Patsy did not kill their daughter. On the case, he said, quote, "Many crimes are tried in the court of public opinion long before they reach a court of law, but I know of no other case in which the majority of people have decided the solution based on statistics. I know of no other case in which the public substantially believes what has been reported in the tabloids. I know of no other case in which the mainline media have let the tabloids take the lead and then reported on their reporting. And I know of no other case in which largely respectable television programs have tried so hard to outdo each other in sensationalism." End quote. One theory is that Patsy struck JonBenet in a fit of rage after a bedwetting episode and strangled her to cover up what had happened, after mistakenly thinking she was already dead. However, Patsy did not have a known history of uncontrolled anger. JonBenet's brother Burke Ramsey later said, "We didn't get spanked. Nothing of the sort. Nothing close. Nothing near laying a finger on us, let alone killing your child." Theoretically, the strangulation could have been a red herring aspect to conceal other elements of the assault and killing. Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of JonBenet's death, was interviewed by investigators at least 3 times. The first 2 interviews did not raise any concerns about him. A review by a child psychologist stated that it appeared that the Ramseys had healthy, caring family relationships. In 1998, Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner said during an interview with a news reporter that Burke Ramsey was not involved in the killing of his sister. In May 1999, the Boulder County District Attorney's Office reiterated that Burke Ramsey was not a suspect. The investigators have never considered him a suspect. The second theory is the intruder theory. The police and the prosecutors followed leads for intruders partly due to the unidentified boot mark left in the basement room where JonBenet's body was found. Early persons of interest included neighbor Bill McReynolds, who played Santa Claus, Chris Wolf, a local reporter whose then-girlfriend reported him as a suspect, family housekeeper Linda Hoffman Pugh, and a man named Michael Helgoth, who died in an apparent suicide shortly after JonBenet's death. Hundreds of DNA tests were performed to find a match to the DNA, and in 2003 defamation lawsuit related to the case involving the Ramseys publicly identifying an early suspect in the case, Judge Julie E. Carnes wrote, quote, "There is virtually no evidence to support Wolf's theory that the Ramseys murdered their child, but abundant evidence to support the Ramseys' belief that an intruder entered their home at some point during the night of December 25th, 1996, and killed their daughter." On the night JonBenet was killed, there had been 2 windows that were left slightly open to allow for electrical cords for the outside Christmas lights to pass through, a broken basement window, and 1 unlocked door. Smith's theory was that someone entered the Ramsey home through the broken basement window. Critics have questioned this theory because there was an intact cobweb in the basement window. The steel grate that covered the window also had undisturbed cobwebs, and the foliage around the grate had been undisturbed. There were also cobwebs in the tracks of various windows, and dust and debris were on some sills. Smith believed that the intruder subdued JonBenet using a stun gun and took her down to the basement. JonBenet was killed and a ransom note was left. Smith's theory was supported by former FBI agent John E. Douglas, who had been hired by the Ramsey family. Believing that the Ramseys were innocent, Smith resigned from the investigation on September 20th, 1998, 5 days after the grand jury was convened against the Ramseys. While no longer an official investigator on the case, Smith continued to work on it until his death in 2010. It was determined that there had been more than 100 burglaries in the Ramseys neighborhood in the months before JonBenet's murder. There were 38 registered sex offenders living within a 2-mile radius of the Ramseys' home. In 2001, former Boulder County prosecutor Tripton Muth and Boulder County Sheriff's Detective Steve Ainsworth stated that there should be a more aggressive investigation of the intruder theory. One of the individuals whom Smith identified as a suspect was Gary Howard Olivia, who was arrested for 2 counts of attempted sexual exploitation of a child and 1 count of sexual exploitation of a child. Charges in June 2016. According to Boulder's Daily Camera, Olivia, a registered sex offender, was publicly identified as a suspect in an October 2002 episode of 48 Hours Investigates. John Mark Carr was arrested in Bangkok, Thailand on August 15, 2006, following a false confession to murdering JonBenet. Carr, a 41-year-old schoolteacher, claimed to have drugged, sexually assaulted, and accidentally killed JonBenet. According to CNN, authorities also said they did not find any evidence linking him to the crime scene. In the confession, Carr had provided only basic facts that were publicly known and failed to provide any additional convincing details. The claim that JonBenet was drugged further cast doubt on the confession because the autopsy indicated no drugs were found in her body. Furthermore, Carr's DNA did not match any of the DNA found on JonBenet's body. Lynn Wood, the Ramsey family's libel attorney, filed defamation lawsuits against several people and companies that had reported on the case starting in 1999. They sued Star Magazine and its parent company, American Media Inc., on their son's behalf in 1999. Defamation suits have been filed by the Ramseys and their friends against several unnamed media outlets. A defamation suit was filed in 2001 against the authors and publisher of JonBenet Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation. The suit against Don Davis, Stephen Thomas, and St. Martin's Press was settled out of court the following year. John and Patsy Ramsey were sued in 2 defamation lawsuits arising from the publication of their book, The Death of Innocence. These suits were brought by two persons named in the book who were said to have been investigated by Boulder police as suspects in the case. The Ramseys were defended in those lawsuits by Lynn Wood and 3 other Atlanta attorneys, James C. Rawls, Eric P. Schroeder, and S. Derek Bauer. They obtained the dismissal of both lawsuits. U.S. District Court Judge Julie Carnes later concluded that abundant evidence in the murder case pointed to an intruder having committed the crime. In November 2006, Rod Westmoreland, a friend of John Ramsey, filed a defamation suit against an anonymous web surfer who had posted 2 messages on internet forums using the pseudonym Under the Radar, implicating Westmoreland in the murder. During a September 2016 interview with CBS Detroit and in the case of JonBenet Ramsey documentary television program, forensic pathologist Werner Spitz accused Burke Ramsey of killing his sister. On October 6, 2016, Burke filed a defamation lawsuit against Spitz. Burke and his attorneys, who also included Lynn Wood, sought a total of $150 million in punitive and compensatory damages. Wood said he would also file a suit against CBS at the end of October 2016. On December 28, 2016, Burke Ramsey's lawyers filed an additional civil lawsuit that accused CBS, the production company, Critical Content LLC, and 7 experts and consultants of defamation of character. They sought $250 million in compensatory damages and $500 million in punitive damages. Sorry, I was struggling with my words there. In January 2018, a judge denied the CBS motion to dismiss, and the suit was allowed to proceed. In January of 2019, Wood announced that the lawsuit had been settled to the satisfaction of all parties. That's a really, 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 really sad story of JonBenet Ramsey. As always, y'all, don't do anything I wouldn't do. Make good choices and be cautiously kind to others. And I'll see y'all next week. Bye.